All right, we're going to have a conversation now on the internet and social media as they relate to public relations. As you can see, there'll be a part one and a part two. These conversations, as you know, are based on the textbook Public Relations, Strategies and Tactics by Wilcox and Cameron and the 10th edition. The internet, of course, is pervasive in our lives. We still have traditional media with us. There are major differences in traditional media and social media. So let's have a look at a short video on that. I'm going to try to pick this up somewhat in the middle.
Traditional media versus new social media. In traditional media, there is no scope for further discussion and subsequent improvement. What is published once cannot be changed immediately. In new social media, there is constant scope for improvisation, change and immediate improvement. In new social media, with a click of the mouse, one can publish and disseminate the desired message around the world. The video has shown the massive change in the two types of media. Traditional media versus new social media. I hope you know the big differences between the two.
Okay, so as we look at traditional media versus social media, traditional media, going back to Gutenberg's printing press in the 1400s, traditional media is centralized. It operates in a top-down fashion from the people who run a media organization through their employees and then finally to the public. It is costly to publish and broadcast, and so this is something that is handled by well-capitalized companies such as the Dallas Morning News or a television station or a radio station. We have professional gatekeepers in traditional mass media, and these are editors. If we're talking about the broadcast field, radio and television, there are news directors. There are program directors. All programming is not news. So program directors determine the type of entertainment programs that might appear on television or radio. So we have folks who are kind of informally called gatekeepers in traditional media. It is one-way communication for the most part. A newspaper is published, and the reader reads the newspaper, or a viewer views the television station, listens to the radio station, and so on. There are some forms of two-way communication. Newspapers publish letters to the editor, and so on. Now, with the internet and social media, first of all, social media is possible because of widespread broadband. The majority of people now in developed countries, certainly the U.S., have access to broadband internet. It is cheap or free and easy to use if we're talking about the receiver of the social media or internet content, but really in many respects even to produce that content is relatively cheap and in some cases free, certainly much more so than publishing a newspaper or broadcasting on a television or radio station. The internet and social media to a great extent now are driven by mobile devices, or they are received on mobile devices, smartphones. We'll talk more about this, but the smartphones make it much easier for people to receive things from the internet and social media. Convenient. The internet and social media have created new advertising paradigms, new ways of advertising. The worldwide growth of the internet has taken less time than the growth of any other mass medium, much faster than radio and television. You see the word "end" there, and that needs to be removed. We're not ending. We're just starting. So the World Wide Web, from the PR perspective, a website is a distribution system in cyberspace. A lot of the things that we used to do in PR, in print, hard copies of publications. A lot of this is now done online in cyberspace. Journalists, investors, audiences all expect to find media kits, photos, annual reports, multimedia presentations on a website. There's a lot of expectation for what should be available on your website. A preliminary step in creating any web page is to understand the potential audience and their particular needs. This is always true in any kind of media work that we do. We have to take the audience into account. We have to have a particular audience in mind. We need to know a lot about that audience. What are their needs and desires and the things they like and what they do not like. Improved navigation ranks as the first priority for a website. Fewer clicks is the goal, because sites lose users with every step in navigation. So the easier it is to use, obviously, the better, and that certainly needs to be taken into account. There are 4 reasons why users return to a website. High quality content. They got something that was valuable to them. Ease of use. Goes without saying. Quick downloads, so it works well from a technical point of view. Frequent updates. It's not the same every time you come back to it. Making a website interactive, which is usually the goal of most organizations. There's something called the pull concept, and this is the way we operate on the internet, where the user actively searches for answers to questions. So the user is out there and is engaged and involved in this communications process, pulling in information to himself or herself. The push concept is the old way that with the traditional media, the information is delivered to the user more or less in finished fashion. It is what it is, and the user is not directly involved in the creation of that media content, whether it's a newspaper or a television newscast or what have you. Being interactive, unfortunately, is more of a buzzword than reality on many websites. So a lot of websites don't achieve some of the goals that we were talking about a minute ago. One thing in particular, email queries. If you put up an email address, and I've had this frustration, and I'm sure you've had this frustration. If you put up an email address for people to send emails to you, then respond to the emails. And actually, email queries should be answered within 24 hours. Tips for designing a website. Let's look at a video, at least a part of a video on this subject.
Building a great website is not about technology. It's not about choosing WordPress or Wix or Squarespace. Instead, there are some simple principles that make websites great. You probably already know these principles intuitively, but have just never thought about them before. Don't build a website because you need one. Build a website because it accomplishes a goal for you. For example, a clothing company wants to sell products. A landscaping company wants to generate leads. Or a publication might want you to sign up for its newsletter. A goal is a clarifying thing. Once you have a goal, you can make decisions about adding or removing elements based on one question. Does it help me accomplish my goal? Navigation is meant to be used, so it should be simple and conventional. Think of it like elevator buttons. People are using these buttons to get somewhere, so don't make it confusing. Navigation should always be found in a typical location, most commonly the top right corner, or occasionally vertically along the left.
We're going to pause that there. It goes on for another several minutes. It's about a 5-minute or close to 6-minute video, and I hope you will watch the whole thing. I think it's good, but in the interest of time, we'll stop it there, and we'll cover some of our own points here in terms of designing a website. Place the organization's name and logo on every page, so the person who's using it never forgets who they are receiving the information from. Provide a search tab if the site has more than 100 pages. This is from your textbook. I would think that you would want a search tab even if you didn't have close to 100 pages. But certainly in most cases you probably do want to have a search tab. You should have straightforward and simple headlines and page titles. The simple, easy to remember, easy to read, easier to find in a search. So keep things simple. Create a starting page that provides an overview, and there should be hypertext links that will connect to secondary pages focusing on specific topics. So a starting page providing an overview with hypertext links. Structure the page and every page, not just the starting page, but every page to facilitate scanning. Use subheads and create hypertext links on the subheads. So the subheads make it easy for someone to find what they're looking for. Use product photos, but avoid pages with lots of photos. This slows down the loading of the page. I'm sure you've experienced that with something that's just too complicated. A small photo on each product page is recommended, and then allow it to be enlarged for details. So, and I think you've seen this likely on Amazon.com. You see a photo of a shirt or what have you, and then you can put the cursor over that photo and it enlarges, and you can see more in detail how the shirt is made. Follow the example of major websites to create familiarity. In other words, people come to expect certain things, and they learn that from major websites that they visit. I mentioned Amazon.com. So the more yours is like the websites they are familiar with, the better. Test your design with real users. So let some people try it out and see what they say, and you probably will learn something from that. The rise of social media. Social media, sometimes referred to as the Web 2.0, because it is so interactive. And in the beginning with the internet and web pages, they were not nearly as interactive as social media is. 70% of all digital information is now created by consumers. Imagine that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, receiving information and content from all of their users. So 70% of all digital information is created by consumers. Social media has changed the landscape of public relations. Almost needless to say. PR must be focused on listening to facilitate conversations between organizations and their constituents. This was true before social media, but really social media makes it more important to be listening to facilitate conversations between organizations and their constituents. And in many respects, it makes it easier. Social media makes listening to the people who you are trying to serve, makes it easier. The organization's activities have become much more transparent because of social media. They must be more transparent. This is expected. And are fair game for comment. And we have to understand that and have to live with that. All right, some information about blogs. The header there says everyone's a journalist. We wish that was true. That is not necessarily true in the sense that we don't always have everyone performing at the standards that we wish that they would operate at from a point of view of journalism. But certainly they're able to function as a journalist. So the word blog is derived from weblog, as in the World Wide Web. And a log is something where you fill out an entry every day or periodically. So that is where the term blog comes from. PR organizations use blogs for 4 reasons: to achieve real-time communication with stakeholders. So once you push the button to upload, then there it is, and you can put something out very quickly. To enable passionate, knowledgeable people to talk about the organization and its products and services, to foster conversation among audiences, which is what we were talking about a moment ago, the listening to facilitate conversations between organizations and their constituents, and to facilitate interactive communication and encourage audience feedback. Really, I think that's another way of saying the previous item there. One other thing about blogs is ideally they should be done on a regular basis. You can certainly put something out on a moment's notice if need be, but they ideally should be done on a scheduled, regular basis that is predictable and that the audience becomes familiar with. All right, so we will continue this conversation on the internet and social media next time. Thanks.